Oh, there's one. Got tiny. Oh, he might be bigger than I thought. Yeah, he feels a little better than I thought he was. Fishing. Oh yeah, nice fish. Nice fish. Good way to start right there. Fishing today with Joe Burns on a cold, cold fall morning, down in the 30s, but it's supposed to be 75 this afternoon. Joe is a national champion bow shooter. We'll be talking about a little bow shooting here after a while. Right now, Joe, that's a good way to start, isn't it?
Yes, it is. That's a beautiful fish.
There at that.
Beautiful.
Got a Lucky Strike jerkbait on, a Lucky Sticks, and that fish hit the front of that bait. He's hooked on the front hook, and one of the things you better have handy if you're going to fish a jerkbait is some needle nose. I got my barbs all smashed down, but even with barbs smashed down, you're going to have needle nose to get those hooks out a lot of times. And look at here, look at this fish, Joe. He's got every one of them in them. All three hooks. That's the way I want to catch him in a tournament.
You wasn't going to lose him.
He was not going to get away, was he? Some good cold morning sugar. You know what that fish is thinking? Woo, he's got hot lips. And that fish is right. Goodbye, baby. We started out this morning with jerkbaits. We're going to try them a little bit. We fished a while and hadn't had a bite. Finally got a bite. But this is a suspended jerkbait, and which means that once you jerk it down, it's going to stay at that depth. It's not going to float back up to the top. A floating jerkbait will float back up to the top. This one, when you jerk it down, it's going to stay right there. When the water gets really cold, we catch a lot of fish. The water's dropped down in the low 60s here, 63 degrees right now on my Garmin. And when it drops down really cold, gets down in the 40s, the jerkbait still works really good if you got a good clear water lake, especially January and February. And you want to pull that thing down, and the key is the colder it gets, the colder the water gets, the longer you pause before you jerk that bait. There's one. He hit it on the stop. Ooh, that's a nice one. He hit it on the stop while it was stopped, Joe. It's going to warm up pretty quick today with that little breeze blowing. It might be a little cooler for a while. Probably get out of these jackets here in a little bit.
Well, that's a pretty one there.
He's got everything in him, don't he? He is hooked very well. Come here, baby.
Beautiful fish.
Come here, baby doll. One of the things you got to be with these jerkbaits. Look at there, he's got every hook in him also. No, one of them's not. You got to be careful with them. When you put your thumb in their mouth, you want to get a good tight grip. Beginning fishermen, and you've seen it, I'm sure, Joe, they get a hold of them, they just barely got them, and the fish will flop and jerk loose. And the bigger the fish, sometimes the tighter the grip you got to get, because they're hard to hold. You see how sharp these little hooks are on this Lucky Strike bait? Oh, that's a pretty fish right there. That's a good one. Ooh.
There's one.
Got him? Yeah. That's like a pretty nice one. Ooh, that's not a bad fish.
Yeah, there,
nice
baby.
fish. He hit it on the stop, Joe?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the way that last one I caught, you know.
Come on up.
That cold water. They're pretty strong, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
Yep. That cold water, that water's a little colder. They let that bait stop a little bit.
Good looking fish.
Yeah, that one's kind of skinny there.
I don't know if I'll be able to, probably have to lip him.
You're gonna thumb him, are you?
I'm going
How
to
big a
try.
line you got on there?
Light.
Yeah. Yeah, you gotta be a little more careful with that line.
There we go.
Especially all this brush and stuff.
That's a pretty fish right there,
yeah.
Jimmy.
Yeah.
Boy, he hooked himself.
Sun feels
good.
pretty good. They don't have to bite fast. They just bite every now and then. I'm happy. Of course, the faster they bite, the better. They may not be throwing the best bait.
He's pretty.
Oh,
pretty
yeah.
fish.
There he is. He was way out here. I mean, way out. I worked that thing almost back to the boat. I stopped right before I got to the boat. That's one of the things you always want to do, no matter what bait you're fishing. Get close to the boat, stop. If it's a bait that's just going to sink, let it fall. If the bait's going to float, let it float it back up to the top a little bit. spinnerbait, just slow it down. Oh, come here, baby. Boy, he just barely got the end of that. Look at that. Almost didn't catch that one, Joe.
Well, I'll tell you what, they're pretty fish.
Oh, yeah, beautiful.
Beautiful.
That's the smallest one we caught, I think, right there.
Beautiful fish.
Joe, you spent a lot of years in the military, about like 30 years or almost?
I was 27. Yeah, I had 27 and a half years in.
So you probably spent several stints over there in the Middle East then, didn't you?
I had one tour over there for a year.
Wow.
2004, 2005 I was over.
Yeah.
It's a long year.
Oh, I bet it is. It gets pretty lonely, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. But you got your buddies there that helps you get through the tough times.
You get in any really bad situations, lose friends and stuff? Just about everybody I've talked to, they've had that situation.
We lost 3 guys out of our battalion.
Man. It's something that, it's a real personal then. It's almost like losing a brother, isn't it? I mean,
Yes, it is.
seriously.
It's tough.
Yeah. And now you have a lot of time you can hunt and fish, right?
That's what I try to do.
Ain't that great?
Being retired is a bonus sometimes.
I'm going to do that in about 10 more years, I think. I've been kind of thinking about that. I never had thought about retirement. I think 10 more years, but got one on a worm there.
All right.
Got one on a worm. They may just be down deeper. I'm seeing some fish down deeper on my Garmin. So I put that hydro tail worm, Lucky Strike hydro tail worm on there. I fished it quite a little while and didn't get a bite, but that's a nice one right there. We may be changing you over to a worm here in a minute. That might be an accident, but I don't believe in accidents too much in fishing. Ah, that's a nice one.
That's another pretty one.
Look how fat that fish is. Golly, that's a chunk, as we call them. Go back and tell your buddies Hot Lip Jimmy's here. Tell all your fat girlfriends. Got a bass hung up in a tree.
Hopefully he stays on there.
I believe we get over and get it undone. I see. Oh,
See, he's bumping
there. I
it
see
still.
The tree shaking. Yeah. Jerkbait is not paying off like the plastico worms. Hydro tail worm. There's a fish way over there.
That is the
There's
fish.
a fish. That's a big one. You're wrapped around that tree,
all
dude.
wrapped up in the tree.
You're gonna have to get it around that tree. You have to go around the tree. You have to go around it. Yeah. Yeah. Now bring him through it. Wind him. You should be able to wind him.
Now it must be down in the bottom. He must have wrapped it around there.
You got to go the same way he wrapped it, so you're gonna have to unwrap
That's
it.
gonna. I'm not for sure how that was.
Well, can you not crank him up any?
It's not moving from the tree. It must be wrapped around the tree.
Yeah. Should only be wrapped one time. Yeah, he's 2 or 3 foot away from that.
And it's pretty low wherever it's at.
That's a $10 worm. The hook's free, but it's the only one you get. The second hook's gonna cost.
That's terrible. Catch a fish like that and getting all tangled up.
Let me see that pole. The bad part is we're scratching my wrap. If we had a dip net, we could reach down there and dip net that fish and break the line off. The fish is...
We let the expert try to get this thing off there.
You're not gonna get that fish. Yeah. don't want to be up here though. I thought we were on the right side of that tree back there. I thought I had the boat held on that tree, and it drifted off of it or something. That boat's got to be on the right side of that tree. Thought I had it back there, but I guess that wind blew it off of it. We need to hold on that tree and not let that boat.
All right.
We need to hold on to that tree and not let that
Oh,
boat
he got it.
go on this side of it. Here, get my fish for me. It's the biggest one of the day. Yeah, I think you let him swallow it. Oh, mercy. I'm glad we got him because we got to get that hook out now.
Thank you, Jimmy.
That's the biggest one of the day. You got to get that hook out of his.
He is pretty.
There he is.
You knew he was around there.
That feels a little better. Ooh, a little bit better, yeah. Yeah. Come here, sugar bear. Ooh, yeah. You're my baby. Come here, baby doll. Yeah. Woohoo. Let me go hydra tail worm in your mouth perfectly. Perfectly. One of the things you got to realize about bass fishing is they will always tell you what you need to do. One of the problems that I have in bass fishing, I'm trying to tell the fish what to do, and that doesn't work very often. This morning, we're trying to tell the fish they need to be hitting jerk baits. The fall of the year is a great time, and not a lot of people fish jerk baits in the fall of the year, and that's one thing that makes them great to fish this time of the year, because they're not seeing a jerk bait that much. They don't see them that much during the hot summertime. So when the water starts cooling off, a jerk bait ends up being a pretty good bait to fish. But you can't force feed them sometimes. I'll get that bait very straight. You can't force feed them. You want those worms straight too, by the way. You don't want them crooked. You want them straight. They'll twist your line if they're crooked, so keep them good and straight. And that'll help you catch more fish on a worm. And actually what I think the deal is, don't cast into the wind, you get a rolling martin in your reel.
There's one.
Got him? Got him. Yes, sir. Ooh, that's pulling pretty good, isn't he? Oh, my goodness. You just catching all the big ones, General.
I'm learning from the best.
How big is he, Joe? He's pulling pretty hard. Yes, he is.
Come on up, baby.
Yes, he is, pulling pretty hard. You only got like 8 or 10 pound test line on there, I think.
Yes, sir.
That's a good one. Not as big as that other one. He'll work.
Come on in.
He will work. They all count one. I love it. All
Get on
right.
up here.
Way to go, Joe.
Get on up here.
Heard that before, hadn't you?
Yes, sir.
That's what all the girls say. Way to go, Joe, right? Way to go, Joe.
Pretty fish.
And that one didn't swallow it, right?
No, sir.
Good deal. Good job. Good job.
Nice one.
Perfect. You know, I'm calling you general, but you wasn't quite a general. So I don't want your old commanding officer calling me up and said, "What did that lying Joe Burns tell you?"
Yeah, you'll get me in trouble.
Oh, me. You're a general in my eyes, Joe.
Well, thank you, Jimmy.
That's all I can say. You're a general in my eyes.
Thank you. Appreciate it. See if we can catch any more out there.
Come here, pal. They were biting that plastic. I think the fish were just deeper than we were fishing. That bait that we were fishing, and I had mine on 15-pound test, 14-pound test line. Those fish were just a little bit deeper than what we're fishing. The crankbait, I threw a crankbait a little bit. They didn't want that. They're wanting something pretty slow, but they're biting it pretty doggone good when you get it down there. So you gotta, yeah, we all have baits we load to fish. We all have baits we think should work at certain times, but some. Come here, baby. Come here, baby. Power pole down. Power pole down right here. Stop here in the honey hole. Sometimes you just have to change baits. Sometimes you just use a potpourri of baits to catch fish. one of the questions I get asked all the time, totally, people want to know, Jimmy, how do you know when to change baits? How do you know when what they're biting on? You catch a fish or two and then you go a while without a bait. How do you know? Well, today we've been fishing out here and we started out with a jerk bait, caught 4 or 5 fish on jerk bait, changed over to a plastic worm, a hydrotail worm, and we did pretty doggone good on it. Picked the spinner bait up right here in the middle of the day, 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and they hammered it. Well, let me tell you, generally, if you're having to change baits in order to catch fish, generally, the fish aren't biting very well. If the fish are biting really good, they're going to bite a spinner bait, they're going to bite a crankbait, they're going to bite a worm, whatever you want to throw, maybe a topwater, a buzzbait, a frog, whatever. So when they're biting, when they're hard to catch, that's when you need to be changing baits. But here's the other point of that. They're hard to catch, so you've got to make sure you give that bait a good opportunity. You don't want to take that thing, put it on 10 or 15 minutes and cut it off and change baits. I've been with fishermen that do that. I like it because they may go through 20 baits and finally figure out what they're biting. But you need to give it a good opportunity. And I'm saying like an hour at least, sometimes a couple hours when the fishing's tough, and then change baits. Give that an hour or 2 hours. But always change baits to something that you think should possibly work. Have a reason. Don't just pull a bait out of the tackle box. Well, I think I'll try a spinner bait. You know, don't do that. Have a reason why it might work. Once you do that, you can change baits with some sense of intelligence and wisdom about it, and changing baits a lot of times will really change your day. If this had been a tournament today, once I figured that spinner bait out, I could have gone from not having a really good string of fish or maybe only having 1 or 2 fish to having a limit in a heartbeat and doing really, really well in a tournament. So change baits, but change it with a lot of intelligence behind it.